But it's good to have people that understand your needs, who understand the nature of your work, who understand it's more than just giving a little speech once or twice a week. We meet with people, we counsel with people, we intervene in their lives when they're going through hard times. We spend the first 4 hours of our day when it's 90 degrees out, sometimes cleaning out 4 sheds. Like literally, that's what I did today. It's not just the teaching. I'd say that's kind of our primary goal, the Ephesians 4 goal. And that's our primary goal in our gift and in our calling. But man, we're doing everything, especially in a small church.
Welcome to another episode of the Mantle Forge. My name is Pastor Joel, and I'm pastor of Calvary Chapel in Danville, Virginia. We've got a great conversation today with Pastor Chad Myhre from Calvary Chapel in Charlottesville, Virginia. Let's join the conversation. I want to welcome you to another episode of Mantle Forge. I have with me as our guest Pastor Chad Myhre. Welcome, Chad, and thanks so much for taking some time for us today on the podcast. I'm excited to have you and just hear from you and your insight from the work that you have up in Charlottesville. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself and your ministry, family. Where are you at?
All right. My name's Chad, of course. I'm married to Julie. We've been married 31 or 2 years. And I'm not sure about the exact number. It's a lot, but in a good way. We raised 7 children. I have 6 grandchildren. In a couple weeks, I'll have 7. I've been pastoring here for 26 years and did many years of ministry before that and in other kinds of works. Basically, went to Bible school when I got out of high school and have pretty much been in ministry, the whole time except for a random year here and there. And been pastoring for the bulk of that and have lived in Virginia pretty much the bulk of my life now.
That's great. And so how did you end up in Charlottesville? Like, what was the way that the Lord directed you? Who were some of the main people or maybe times where you just sensed that call or that became clear? First a pastoral ministry, and then how'd you make your way to pastor in Charlottesville?
Well, first of all, I had to come to terms with becoming a pastor. When I went to Bible school, my goal and my intent were to, go into the mission field. That's all I really wanted to do. Yeah. I just wanted to be working in some other country, doing some kind of work. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to be benefiting some kind of ministry. I always said the ideal job would be put me in an orphanage and make me the guy that builds chicken coops, I mean, I just wanted to be out there doing something. Yeah. And I just wanted to put my hands to the work. And so I went to a Bible school that was geared towards directing people into missions ministry. And, I just always said, I'll do anything. Just as the one thing I don't want to do is stay here in America and be a pastor. It's the one thing I do not want to do. I don't like those guys. I haven't had good experiences with those guys. My experience with them growing up was not good. I got saved when I was 14. And, I can think of the first 3 or 4 pastors that we had because they shuffled them around a lot. Wow. And, out of like 4 or 5 pastors that I really had interaction with growing up, there was like one youth pastor I thought was a solid dude.
Right.
And wow. So this was, this is 18, 19-year-old Chad.
Right.
That's his, those are his opinions.
Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't 56-year-old Chad saying all that stuff. So no, I'm 55. Don't make me older than I am. So, and that's where my focus was. That's where I headed. I wanted to be in ministry. And, And I went and I served on an Indian reservation in Arizona for a while. I had this opportunity come to me to do ministry in the national parks.
Wow.
And what they do is they put student ministers in the national parks to hold church services. They usually put a team of them there. And since I was older, I was out of Bible school, but I was still within that age range. They put me somewhere with a longer commitment, and it was a solo work, which was awesome.
Right.
And so that brought me to Bedford, Virginia. And I served at Peaks of Otter through the whole season from spring into late fall. And then afterwards, I thought, well, I'm done. I'm just going to hop in my truck. I'm going to go find the mountains somewhere, find something to do. And but first, I have to go and be in a wedding in Florida where I met the woman I was going to marry. We got married, moved to Virginia. We worked with a Christian children's home for 5 years, kind of circling out from Lynchburg in different towns back in Bedford. And we were at a men's retreat at the 4-H Retreat Center. Lloyd Pulley was teaching. I have no idea what he was teaching about, but I was having this experience with the Lord, and it was just like, that thing you don't want to do, Chad. That's what I want you to do. And it was heavy.
Yeah.
And I felt like I needed to make myself accountable to somebody, so that I couldn't blow it off.
Right.
So I went to Troy, talked to Troy. Things developed over the years, and kind of settled on the fact that, okay, maybe I would like to pastor in some degree, some respect. Kind of developed a love for studying, love for teaching, love for writing.
And what's the time frame years wise that this has taken place, where you kind of made your way through Lynchburg, where Pastor Troy Warner pastors, and
I was there when the church started, I think in 94.
94 August. Actually, their 31st anniversary, I think, is coming up. It's either the first or the second week of August.
Yeah, we just had our 26th.
Yeah.
It came in wet. Didn't even realize it.
Wow.
I'm like, I think our anniversary is coming up. It's like, oh no, that was like 3 weeks ago.
Time flies, man, doesn't it?
26 years isn't a big deal. 25, we made a big deal.
But, yeah.
We bought a banner.
Hey, that's a big deal.
I know. We left it up for a year, and then it's like, okay, that year's over.
Right. All right.
Let's take it down.
Yes.
And so, all this was developing kind of within that time window, and kind of coming to grips with this probably like 97, 98, and moved up here in 99. And I was willing to go anywhere. But interestingly, I kind of had this draw to Charlottesville. And I didn't know anything about it.
Right.
It was just a town that you drive through on your way to DC.
Yeah.
You have to go to the airport.
Yeah.
And I remember the very first time we stopped in this town, and it was on our way to DC. It was late at night, and we had to pull over in the Kmart parking lot to change my son's diaper. And my son turns 30 in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And I don't know why, but I just felt like I felt like I was drawn to this town. I had decided that I liked this town, even though I'd never been here.
Right.
And doors open to work with Calvary Satellite Network, to open and run a radio station. Went through all the training, went through all the preparation for that. Thought there was an opportunity up here. It shut down. Thought I was going to go to somewhere in North Carolina. And my wife kept saying, no, we're not going to go there. I'm like, yeah, but that's where the job is.
Yeah.
And we went on vacation, came back from vacation, came in. I think it was a Sunday night. And I think Joe Palmer said, hey, have you heard? We're sending you to Charlottesville. Surprise.
Hey.
So it came up, started a station, started a Bible study in my apartment. It's been 26 years. We planted a bunch of churches and just been plowing forward consistently.
It's unique how I just love, that's part of what I love hearing about everybody that just had the chance to talk to at conferences, other guys and pastors, just kind of the way that the call unfolds, and then just also where God places you for those seasons of ministry, how that call like interweaves. And it's interesting, you know, there's those who didn't have a desire, then the Lord gave them the desire by calling them. And then those who maybe did have a desire for a while. So for you, it was kind of like, well, not kind of like, it's like, don't want this. And, and the Lord is like, well, I understand that's what you don't want, but that's what I want.
Yeah, my young brain said, pastors are scoundrels. That was my young brain.
Yeah.
And my old brain still says that at times.
Well, some are.
But I know. So the challenge is, you know, how can we not be a scoundrel?
Yeah. So. Yeah, exactly. So you've been in Charlottesville for 26 years, and it's been a while, obviously. It's quarter century. And it's a lot of time, yes, to minister to other people, but it's a lot of time for the Lord to be doing a work in you. So what's the greater work from your perspective? God's work in you or the work in the church? And I know both of them are like, they're both happening, but from your perspective.
I always feel like, in terms of like greater work in me, I always feel like we're just starting to progress. It's like, whoa, I feel like I just touched the edge of maturity there for a moment. You know,
yes.
I just always feel like I'm just, you know, getting started at times. You know, just you read the great books, you know, and I don't always know the names of the books, but I do know the names of the authors. You know, you read C.A. Coates or C.H. McIntosh or you know, or any of those guys, or Tozer, or you read the great books and it's like these, or the 50 People Every Christian Should Know by C.S. Lewis. You read that and you're like, how could I ever become like those people?
Right.
And, you know, you're doing this for years and years and years, and you see this level of maturity in these people and this level of commitment. And then you look at yourself and you're like, not even close. You know, so greater work in me, I just feel like, well, maybe that'll happen later.
Yeah.
You know, something's happening. I'm learning. I'm learning more things.
Do you feel like that's part of, like, you know, I don't know that scripture comes to mind per se, but just that concept of, you know, the longer we, regardless of whether you're a pastor or not, but especially so in ministry, the longer you walk with him and serve him, and you get to know him more, the more you just see how sinful we really are, and how weak we really are.
Yeah. One thing as a pastor of many years is you have the experience of seeing many other pastors fall. And, you know, people you knew, people you loved, people you respected. And then you're like, man, you know, that hasn't happened to me yet. I hope it never does.
Yeah.
You know, but if it could happen to them, if they could go down that path, however that path started, whatever that first compromise was that led to the second compromise, you know, they're still kind of in the realm of questionable innocence. Whatever it is that led them down that path, how do I keep myself from doing that?
Right.
You know, and I think the reason why I'm still here after 26 years is I'm scared.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Here's one thing I know about the Lord. It's like, Chad, if you do something, you're going to get busted. That's been my experience growing up. If you do something, other people can get away with it. You can't, because I love you.
Yeah.
And don't do it.
It's like a concept. Oh, does it appear? I don't know if it's at the end of one of, like, if it's Ellie Romaine's book, Second or something, but just that phrase that sticks with my mind. Obviously, I think it's applied in a different context there, but others may, you may not. Obviously, in areas of sin, no one may, but just even in those areas of caution and just guarding against the temptation to be led astray and to justify, little transgressions against the conscience.
Yeah.
So, and how important do you have you seen that humility to be? I mean, I think that is humility, just recognizing like, I'm not where I know the Lord is leading me to be yet. I'm not where I was when I started. It's still a work in progress. What does that humility do? And have you seen that just kind of morph in time to benefit you in your ministry?
Well, if you read, we study the Bible all the time, and we are just getting smacked with a call to humility over and over and over again. I mean, Deuteronomy now, and I just feel like it's over and over and over again. If you want the things to go good for you, if you want if you want things to be for your good, there's certain things the Lord requires of you, and there's always humility in there. And so if we're studying the Word with a true intent and desire to learn from it ourselves, we can't help but to follow that example. And we can't help but to, it's like, fight off those handholds of pride in our life. They show up, they're there. It's part of what we are. We are prideful beings, but it's just this constant challenge, like this cheerleader every day, be humble. And, so we strive for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won't say I'm really good at being humble because, it's kind of defeats the purpose.
Yeah. 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 I am the most meek person in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, the Bible says Moses was, but maybe you're a close second. Yeah.
Probably so. I'm sure Korah had the same thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you made an interesting point that, and it's unfortunate. These are people and brothers that you know and you've ministered alongside who have fallen and disqualified themselves or have been led astray by the cares of the world, even if they weren't perhaps had some type of disqualifying sin in their life, but they went off and they don't last long in ministry for any number of reasons. So what has been key for you in sustained ministry? I think you hit one was obviously allowing the Word to minister to you, not just through you to people. What's key for sustained ministry?
Have some good friends.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have a couple friends that will take your calls.
Yeah.
And guys you can trust, guys you can say anything to. The stuff that you would say that might shock your church, but what is real, have friends that you can say that stuff to.
Yeah.
And that they can say it to you. I mean, it just helps to have someone that you can just be 100% honest with. This is my struggle. This is what I'm going through. This is what I'm angry about. Here's how I really want to act with these people, Yeah. And I think having good friends, of course, there's the obvious answers. Oh, be in the Word and pray. Of course, duh. That's the no duh question. But beyond that, you don't need advice there. Everyone knows that. You need to have good friends. And if you're a pastor, I think you should have, 2 or 3 really good pastor friends that you connect with, that you trust, and that you understand and they understand you.
Yeah. Now that kind of sparks another question for me because with that idea of friends and those who can you can be open and honest with, and it's not that you're not open and honest with the people of the church or even your leadership or elders, but there is some level of candor and openness that really can just be such a benefit and encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
How would you see that being different than, say, a board or elders kind of serving as that versus really truly having friends and friends in the same movement, friends outside of the same movement in the area that you pastor to? Like, what's been your experience with that?
You want to have friendships with your board, but I would call every one of my, we have elders and we have a board, and
Yeah.
so we're structured just a little bit differently, and I would call every board member I have a friend, and I would call every elder that we have here a friend, and we're all on the same page, and there's a lot of support for one another, and we can all call each other in a time of difficulty, but they're all friends, but we have different levels of friendship.
Yeah.
Yep. And I have a couple of really good friends.
Yeah.
And one of them happens to be one of my elders.
Yeah.
And one of them happens to be a pastor of another Calvary out
Yeah.
west. And all three of us are good friends. And we do ministry together. We travel together, and we've done a lot. And I just think that really close friendship is really vital to longevity. I mean, there are many things that are, but I think that one's really important.
Yeah. So with that, there are challenges and difficulties and frustrations that come up in ministry. What is a season where you really leaned on them, and in what way did those friends really minister to your heart and really keep you in the game?
There was a time, maybe 15, 16 years ago, maybe it's further back. I had gotten to a point of just incredible discouragement. That I felt like there were battles, there were struggles. They were constant. We started our church, and our church, it took off. We had the radio station, had lots of people coming. Yeah. And then you have this young 29-year-old guy who doesn't know what he's doing. And there were always entities coming in, like, oh, here's a great thing we can take advantage of. And so just had to go through a lot of those battles over the years. And then we're having kids, and our kids are small, and the struggle of trying to run the radio station, run the church, be a dad. And I felt like there just came a point where I'd become really discouraged, really, I'll use the term burned out. And maybe depressed.
Yeah.
And one of my elders said, I think you should take a sabbatical. And I'm like, what's that? I don't know what that is. And they said, you should, and it wasn't a long one. I think it was 4 or 5 weeks. And he said, just get away from responsibility. We'll find people to come preach. We'll make sure everything's covered here. And just go do stuff with your family. Have some alone time. Find some good books to read. And just get refreshed. And they checked in on me, and they made sure I was doing well. Spent a lot of time in a cabin up in the mountains that someone let us use for free, and read some good books. I would read a book that really fed my soul and my spirit, and then I would read Louis L'Amour. Probably read more Louis L'Amour than anything else. But it was they saw that I needed that.
Yeah.
And they recognized that if I was going to remain in ministry, some kind of intervention needed to happen.
Yeah. And really the thought is your elders are overseeing the flock in a way by either watching out for you, having your back, looking out for things that you might be blind to. How critical is it for the health of the body to have those elders who are attuned spiritually to those things and come to you and say, hey, I think you need some time away. And it's not some sort of punishment type thing, but recognizing that that's for the benefit of the body and the benefit of you first as an individual and second as a minister. What does that do? And how would you encourage pastors like myself who have yet to appoint their first elders in fellowship to look for those types of guys?
Look for people who really understand what your job is all about. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't understand that.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that the church says, "Okay, we're gonna set a salary," and I just said, "Okay, I told my treasurer, I said, "Okay, I want you to appoint a committee, and work with the existing board, and then you guys do it." And he told me that it was a real difficult time for him. He said because there were a couple guys who just had this mentality that you know pastors should just live in complete and utter poverty. He was like in shock at the kind of things they were offering, and um, you don't want those guys as your elders because they don't understand you or your struggles or your trials. They don't understand what you really need to do. He told these guys, okay, we can give him this salary, but we're not going to have him around because he's going to be working another job. And I had many seasons in the first 10 years or so where I was working other jobs.
Right.
And there were times even in recent years where I was driving Uber,
Right. Yeah.
So, so if we're struggling because the church is unable to provide, and we work, that's fine. I think it's totally fine. If you're called to be a pastor of a church and the church can't meet all your financial needs, then work a job because you're called to do it. And I did that many times. I actually thought, several years ago, I was going to have to do that again before we were given the property that we're currently in. And I was fine with it. I was ready to go, 100% prepared to do it. But it's good to have people that understand your needs, who understand the nature of your work, who understand it's more than just giving a little speech once or twice a week. There's a ton to it. We meet with people, we counsel with people, we intervene in their lives when they're going through hard times. We spend the first 4 hours of our day when it's 90 degrees out, sometimes cleaning out 4 sheds. Like literally, that's what I did today. I came in and took a shower. I have a shower in my office, which is so cool. And I came in and took a shower because I was filthy and just covered in sweat. But sometimes we do that.
Yeah.
We have to do all kinds of different work. It's not just the study. It's not just the teaching. I'd say that's kind of our primary goal, the Ephesians 4 goal. And that's our primary goal in our gift and in our calling. But man, we're doing everything, especially in a small church.
Yeah. When I first started in ministry in Lynchburg, I had the opportunity to be on staff there for a number of years. And I was a middle school pastor and did grounds and maintenance for a while, for most of my time there. And there was a time where I remember changing out a T8 ballast in a...
I've done many of those.
Oh,
yeah.
They're the bane of my existence. I'm still grateful for the new LED lights that are, don't require those types of things. But
yeah, getting one swapped out by an electrician right now down in the basement.
Put
in the LED, baby.
Yes. I can remember there was, and I actually have the book on being a pastor by Dirk Prime and Alistair Begg. Mm-hmm. And it was sitting catty-cornered on the toolbox that I had there. And it was just a picture that's always ingrained and etched in my mind. I think the application of it's so many different ways, but being a pastor in a smaller context, it's not always in the books. It's getting your toolbox out. And whether that is more directly a toolbox of fixing a light or cleaning out a shed or, helping a dear older sister out who needs, a light bulb changed out or something like that. Whatever it happens to be, being ready and willing, and just being that tool that's available, in the Lord's hand. I was reading a book recently. It's actually just on the subject of deacons. It's by Matt Smether. He says this. Act 6 showcases a last gasp satanic ploy, the culmination of a three-front assault. Satan's first two attempts, the persecution, like after the man was healed at the gate beautiful, and then the moral corruption with Ananias and Sapphira. Those things had failed. And then the third, as John Stott would say, the third third threat is distraction from the elders doing what they have been called to do. So he continues to say, without downplaying the importance of caring for widows, the apostles clarify the focus of their own labors. They will devote their best energy to shepherding the church by means of teaching and prayer. He'll go on to say, the apostles recognize a fundamental truth. A church whose ministers are chained to the tyranny of the urgent, which so often shows up in tangible problems, is a church removing its heart to strengthen its arm. So, just want to talk conceptually, and then we can move into the particulars. That phrase, that sentence, over the past probably month and a half has really challenged the way that I have structured my day and week. And it's that idea of giving the best energy to teaching and the prayer. And not every week is the same, but that's really the focus. Why is it so important for us to guard that time? And what are the potential problems if we're not giving our best energies to prayer and the word?
It'll be obvious to a well-taught, well-discipled congregation.
Yeah.
It won't be obvious to everybody.
Yeah.
Sometimes I hear teaching and I'm like, what in the world is that guy talking about? And you look around and people are nodding and they're like, amen. And I'm like, they have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what he's saying. He's just saying things that sound like they feel good.
Right.
And, but I think, we can't get away with that if we've been doing it right. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So if for a season of doing it right and for a season of just really digging in and being super responsible and really diligent and really honest with the word, and you're doing your best to teach it and to apply it and to draw from it, and just pray that God would use you prophetically as you teach it. And it's obvious that you've done the work. It's obvious this isn't someone else's stuff. This isn't AI. These are your words.
Yeah.
Your people know you. And then you come in and blow it one week. Everyone will know.
Yeah.
They will. Everyone will know what happened. The visitor might nod their head and say, amen, that was great. But your people won't. Because you've built something that requires a higher standard. Like I get rebuked. Well, not rebuked. I get encouraged sometimes, in terms of guest speakers that I bring in. Basically in a real nice way, they'll say, yeah, you don't need to do that again. Or they'll send me a text. I'm really glad, this teacher's here today because it really, reminds us how much we appreciate you. And I'm like, all right. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Right.
And so you've created a higher standard.
Yeah.
And once you've done that, it's like once you've labored in prayer and in study and in just really intentionally putting together a solid teaching for your people, and you've done that consistently, you got to keep that up, and you should keep that up. you should keep that up. I mean, you want to be the 5-star restaurant. You want the Michelin star. And once you get that, they're going to come back and make sure you're still doing a good job. And you want to teach your people that way. And you want to teach a sermon that you would want to hear. Like if I went to a conference, this is a teaching I would want to hear.
Yeah.
You want to do that.
Yeah. Now, how much time? Okay, so maybe this has fluctuated through different seasons in life.
Oh yeah, big time.
So how much time on average do you spend on a particular study? And I don't know if it's possible to equate it, or if you're extremely rigid in your timing, or schedule. But how much time is devoted to the study, and to prayer, and your overall process?
Back in the packing a bunch of lexicons and commentaries into a suitcase and taking them to the coffee shop days, literally, diagramming sentences in the Greek, literally way over 20 hours.
Yeah.
And, but now with the tools that we have, if you're a pastor and you're not using Logos, I mean, come on.
Hear ye.
Yeah, it's like, well, we still, have Fred Flintstone wheels in our car. I mean, if you're not using this tool, and and I know that I'm just scratching the surface on it,
especially with the language tools and everything.
If you're not using this tool, like I don't have to diagram sentences anymore. I can look at them right there in front of me and see how the grammar's laid out, and it's great. It's awesome, and so. I'm coming up. Deuteronomy 11 will be the next thing that I teach. And I was off yesterday, but I read it. I don't have a real rigid devotional life. Yeah. It's like every day at this time I pray and I journal and and if you do, that's great. I've tried to do that. I've had seasons of doing that really well. So I always say, I don't really have a good devotional life. I strive to have a life of devotion. So one way or another, I'm in the Word every day.
I want to probe that thought, and come back to that. I do. I want to come back to that.
I'm not even sure where the question started.
As it pertains to delivering a message, what does your preparation look like?
Oh, my preparation. Okay. Yeah, I'll go through that really quick. It's no time at all. It's no time at all. So, when I'm teaching a midweek on Tuesday, I'll read the passage as much as I can. Just reading, thinking, jotting down some notes, not getting into anything, just the word and maybe some notes. Just get a feel for it, get familiar with it. What thoughts pop up as I'm reading it? Oh, this reminds me of this, or this makes me think of this. And just taking some notes and just soaking in it. And then on Wednesday, I study and I write. So that's my midweek study. I just can't put as much into that. But my Sunday study, Thursday is my day to really soak in, take notes, maybe do a little study and do a little extra reading. I always start with the text. I don't go to commentaries or anything like that. I start with the text. I'll do some time looking at some grammar, and then I'll look at the commentaries. And my approach to commentaries is, they're going to tell me what this verse means. That's not my approach to commentaries. My approach to commentaries is, how are they thinking when they approach this passage? What was their path of thinking as they came to this passage? Because it's revealed in what they write to you in the commentary. And that's really what I get from commentaries more than anything. Not very often does a commentary teach me something that I hadn't already figured out. It usually just says what we know in about 12,000 more words. But and then so that's Thursday.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm off on Thursday, but I still do that. And then Friday is, okay, let's start writing this thing. And I use the Logos app. I use the sermon writer app in Logos, which is incredible.
I do too.
And it generates my slides. It does everything. And we use Proclaim to present our software. I can just instantly pop my slides in. I can run them from my iPad while I'm teaching. I don't know why anyone would want to do anything different than that, you know? So, so I just work on writing it. And by the end of Friday, sometimes that pours over into Saturday. So usually by midday Saturday, I'm done writing. And I consider that to be a rough draft. But that's it. I walk away from it.
And do you have more of a manuscript, or do you have more of like maybe half manuscript, half outline, or what?
100% manuscript.
Oh, okay.
Because I need that.
Yeah.
I know where I am weak. And I will say random things. Things will pop in my head. Something that I think is funny, which is not funny, except to the person that has the very random sense of humor in the back. You know, it's just, I need that to discipline me.
Yeah.
You know, so my rough draft is done Saturday. And then I get up on Sunday and I go into the coffee shop. I get there when they open at 7 and I do final edits for about 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah. Right. So most of your emphasis is in time is spent, like much more time spent on your Sundays as opposed to your Wednesdays, and not that, Wednesdays is,
it's not about one being more important than the other.
Yeah, right.
It's just that that's what's available.
Yeah. And
I mean, I got to do other stuff,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I can't study all day on Tuesday. That's a day when I'll probably have to do some counseling, or I might have to itemize the credit card, or, I might have to put filters in for the furnace. It's just, or
clean sheds.
Yeah. Yeah. Tuesday's a real random day.
Or talk to a strange pastor in Danville, Virginia. No, I appreciate that, because I think, people can have ideas, and I think some of this is perpetuated in seminary in some way, but just this idea, this illusion that pastoral ministry is, it's going to be 90% you in a study with your books. And for some people it is that way.
Yeah.
But for most it's not.
Well, what's the beginning of Acts 6? Look at the very beginning of Acts 6.
Yeah.
In these days, when the disciples were increasing in number. A lot of us don't have that privilege of the increasing in number. So
to the degree that,
hey, where are your deacons? We haven't increased in number. That was the model in the Bible. They had deacons when it became too much work for the elders. We haven't done that yet. We haven't increased in numbers.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of deacons? When we have a lot of people, we'll need them.
Yeah.
I mean, until then, you're going to have people doing deacon things.
Sure.
But.
Sure.
So.
Yeah. I did want to circle back to a thought as it relates to reading the Bible, personal relationship, and just walking with the Lord. I've heard it often said, and others are convicted, that you need to have that set time always where you're reading the Word, and something distinct from, say, where you're teaching at, either on your Sundays or Wednesdays, and all of these types of things.
That's a real popular thing to say, because King David was a morning person. Yeah. So Lord, in the morning, to you I direct my prayer, because he was apparently a morning person.
Yeah.
Therefore, we have to be. I went to Bible school.
What's your perspective on that?
I was on Bible school and in staff with organizations that basically said, this is what you do. You will do this. You will have this devotional time in the morning. I've been on staff with organizations that you will do this. This is part of what you do. And that's fine. That's great. But after, over 20 to 30 years of figuring yourself out, you realize that these cookie cutter options that people are giving you and demanding for you to fulfill your relationship with God through that, it doesn't always work. That doesn't work for me. That for me is not intimacy or relationship, that's for me a job I have to do early in the morning. Not for other people. For other people, it's awesome. It's just, but for me, we were just on vacation with the family, and my daughter and my son-in-law are in the morning. Every morning they're in the Word, and they're like, "Where's Pop? He's drinking coffee on the porch. He's playing with the baby. He's doing something. When's he in the Word? I'm not going to make a show of it.
Yeah.
But there was a time where I was laying in bed for a little while reading my phone. There was this other time. I had a book over here. I went for a walk. I went and rode my one wheel. I have opportunities for prayer and for reading and studying and listening. I just incorporate it into my life. So I'm in the Word every day, but it's not the first thing I do.
Yeah.
I get up, I make my foster son lunch for camp or school or whatever, and I make coffee. We're out the door, we're going. But then there's these opportunities almost every day where I'm waiting on someone in my truck. I got logos on my phone. I almost always have the paper Bible in my truck. I almost always have some kind of book close by.
Yeah.
So I take time to read, or I take time to listen to something, or if I'm driving somewhere, I want to listen to something.
Yeah.
And that's edifying, and that teaches me, that builds me up. And it's like, well, what's your prayer life look like? It's like, it is just scattered throughout the day. Because I believe in the principle of pray without ceasing, which means the channels are always open. God is always present. It's an ongoing conversation. And so my devotional life probably looks horrible, but I've tried to make a show of the early morning, like all the great people you read about, up at 3:30 a.m. on my knees in the gravel, praying and memorizing the book of Numbers. That's awesome. I'm glad you can do that.
Yeah.
That just hasn't worked for me.
Yeah.
So I have to find that what does work for me, and I have to find what actually resembles and develops into a relationship.
Yeah.
Because it works better for me that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great. I think that's a good word, because there are, and I've shared seasons of this, and I know others have, where there's almost this guilt.
Yeah, of course.
That you're not doing it the way other people say that they're doing it, or that they say it must be done.
Well, this is what happens as you get older, Joel. These things that people make you feel guilty about, you start questioning them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I've always felt guilty about this. I've always been told I have to do this. But then as you get older, you start pushing back. And you're like, okay, is that real?
Yeah.
Or is that just some rule that someone said we have to follow?
Yeah.
Or is that just some work that we have to do? And that works for a lot of people because they're wired that way. And it works, and it's very fulfilling. You tell me I have to do that, you're turning my relationship with God into a job.
Right.
And that doesn't work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's a great word. The point is, make sure that it is a purposeful priority. Mm-hmm. And the way that flows in someone's life will look different from person to person, but even from season to season, even within within one's own life. And I just appreciate that encouragement. I know that others, besides myself, find that refreshing. Obviously, that shouldn't be a cloak for laziness and just haphazardly treating those things, but also at the same point, it avoids that legalistic trap that can be set, that, well, to quote and amend Ravenhill's statement, the pastor who isn't praying is playing. Well, some people can look at that and say, well, the pastor who's not praying for 3 hours before he starts his day is playing. Mm-hmm. Well, not exactly.
Yeah. What's wrong with praying for 3 minutes?
Yeah.
And then later on for praying for 3 more minutes.
Yeah.
Or having conversational thoughts with the Lord while you're driving down the road, or on the lawnmower, or when you're sitting there looking at a passage and conversationally mulling it over with the Lord. What's the matter? What's wrong with having about 28 2 to 3 minute prayers?
Right.
And that's why I don't
It's
know. I don't know if anyone else has ever said it, but that's kind of why I penned that dumb little, I guess, meme-worthy phrase. I don't really have a devotional life. I strive to have a life of devotion.
Yeah.
And because I don't want my relationship with God to be a job, and that's the way I'm wired.
Yeah.
And that's what works for me.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Why is a consistent hermeneutic essential to the pastor's ministry, and why do people get lazy in it?
So many things. A consistent hermeneutic principle. That is, and that's not just what you do, but it's what you recognize the word to be.
Right. Yes.
Recognizing the word for what it is. I think probably the number one principle of a good hermeneutical system is thinking rightly about God, who he is. It's like, oh, I want to learn hermeneutics. Then I say, okay, then read Knowledge of the Holy. That's not a hermeneutics book. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because the reason why people go off the path, oftentimes with their understanding of the word and the way they interpret it, is they're thinking wrongly about who God is. And so thinking rightly about what the word is and thinking rightly about who God is are probably the initial principles. And then just having standards of context and interpretation. What's the immediate context? What's the context of this section? What's the context of this book? What's the context of the covenant? What's the context of the overall arching scripture story? And making sure that what you're coming up with isn't going to contradict any of that stuff. And keeping your own agendas out of it. Keeping this is a hard one for a lot of people. Keeping your old default conclusions out of it. I mean, how many times do we come to a passage and our brain does the work? It runs the equation and spits out the conclusion because, we've always been told that about this verse.
Yeah.
Or we studied this verse before, but we didn't really study it. We just read what someone else said about it. We've never really dug in and broken it down ourselves. If you are truly studying the Bible and truly teaching the Bible, you will, on a regular basis, confront and correct a default conclusion here and there.
Right.
And I don't think a lot of people do that.
Yeah. It really, I've had the opportunity to go to university and seminary, and I can say one of the things that I gleaned from that was it was just ground into our brains that we need to uncover the meaning from the text. We need to bring that out, let that stand, and from there you can make application. But if that middle part of interpreting correctly after you've done your observations and so forth is not handled properly, you really can go from observation, but also like maybe, and you start at presupposition and then move straight to application. That really becomes dangerous.
Yeah. And a lot of people are really good at that. They have really good imaginations. Even in our own camp, some of the craziest applications I've heard have come out of churches who start with the first two words, as our churches do. I mean, we're not exempt from it.
Right.
But,
right.
It's like, that sounds like a really neat spiritual truth that you said, and people got excited about it and said, wow. But sorry, that's not what that verse teaches.
Yeah.
And I think we should be able to do that. Yeah, here's a spiritual principle I want to launch into based on this idea. But if we do that, we need to make it clear we're not interpreting this verse this way.
Yeah.
We need to qualify, hey, this makes me think of this, and this brings this spiritual principle to mind, we need to qualify that.
Yeah. There's many great sermon points that have been ruined by just lifting what's there. And it should be that way. It's not that that sermon point isn't good or doesn't have a proper context or anything like that, but just letting the passage say what it says. And it goes along with what Paul said to Timothy, to present himself a worker approved, rightly dividing the word of truth. Then that's our job before God. Not just before our elders or the people, but it's also for their benefit and for ours as well. So what resources have you found helpful in refining your pattern? Any that you would encourage? One, as you think, but one that I love is Duvall and Hayes's Grasping God's Word. Also, Roy Zuck's Interpreting the Bible, which is a more...
All right, my list is getting shorter.
So what resources?
Grasping God's Word is pretty good.
Hey,
my daughter actually had a hermeneutics class in high school, and that's what they used.
In high school?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've used sections of it. I teach a Bible interpretation class sometimes for a Bible school in Florida, and I've used just string together different things. I love Roy Zuck's book.
Yeah.
The first hermeneutics book I ever studied was Protestant Biblical Interpretation by Bernard Ram.
Okay.
And I still go back to that, and I just say, this makes so much sense. Don't study the author that much because I think he went off the rails, but he did write a really good, logical, and reasonable book. And I went to Bible school. I did 6 semesters in Bible school. And I could have just taken that one class.
Yeah.
I could have just taken that one class because that's really what had an impact upon me.
Right.
And that's really what has kept me grounded. And those are the tools that I've been given to interpret the word. And I've built on it since then. And there are other books. The thing is, if I try to remember them, I'll sound stupid because I won't remember what they're called. But I have a list of them that are packed away in a box because I'm moving my office. But I just have a ton of hermeneutic books, and they're over there in a box. Yeah. But I love them. They're my favorites. And I think once you have this principle established, what it does is it protects you. How often do we see people who are in ministry go down another path, go down towards sacramental theology, or just totally go into a different shift or different change in what they believe doctrinally.
Yeah.
And just follow after one of these other trends. And you're like, how did they get there?
Yeah. Which I feel like, because, okay, so I'm a latecomer to Calvary Chapel, I discovered Calvary Chapel while I was here in Virginia going to Liberty University, got plugged in, didn't know Calvary. The first time I ever remember anything of Calvary Chapel was in my Theology 250 class when we had a matching section on a test that we had to place, certain denominations or associations in a group based on their theological belief. Never heard of Calvary Chapel before coming to Calvary Chapel Lynch. But one of the things why I'm a Calvary Chapel pastor and why I have attached myself willingly to this movement and this philosophy of ministry is because I've come to these conclusions myself on the study of God's word by applying a consistent historical grammatical hermeneutic. I'm convinced of these things because of how I study the Bible, not because I feel like I have to, toe a party line or something like that, which I think that's what's so freeing and refreshing is that I don't feel like I'm having to, establish the boundaries of my theological camp. Like, it's established by the consistent study and approach and method of finding the text. Others find themselves there because of their hermeneutic. You find yourself in a Reformed camp because of the way they study the Bible. And letting primarily systematic theology drive that cart. You find others.
I've tried to route that path.
Yeah.
I've just okay. I'm gonna.
And this is not to say anything against Reformed brothers.
And it's not. It's just it doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
Because I have become so ingrained in my very literal philosophical approach of interpreting Scripture with Scripture, and always finding an answer to where there's balance and agreement, and always letting mystery be where mystery is.
Yeah.
And I've become so ingrained with that. But I'm like, I have friends, and they're like, we believe this, and they're very dedicated, and like all the smartest commentators are always Reformed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I'm going to convince myself. I'm going to put myself through this discipline.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to find the path there.
Yeah.
So I try to find the path there. I remember ordering books on hermeneutics that were distinctly from a Reformed author. And for me, I kept running into problems because it would seem like occasionally there would be an exception to the rule.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was seeing. No offense to my Reformed brothers, but that's what I was running into.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, if we're going to follow this principle to a true end, let's see how it works with one of these doctrines that defines you that I don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like, okay, now we have an exception to the rule. So what we're going to do is do something that's very complicated.
Yeah.
To come to this conclusion. And I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do that. Or we're going to weigh heavily upon what these church fathers said and how these church fathers interpreted it. Well, just because someone's older doesn't mean they're more right. Have you ever run into that? Well, this is what Augustine believed.
Yeah. Well, he's kind of messed up in a lot of what he believed.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people wouldn't even regard him as a Christian today if he was teaching some of the things he was teaching.
Well, let's go back to Corinth.
Yeah.
They became a church and instantly started believing kooky things.
Yeah.
I mean, just because, and I'm, I have a good understanding of church history. I've taught church history kind of on a Bible school, Bible college level a couple times. I'm about to again. And, you observe how a lot of these ancient church fathers came to their conclusions and what they valued, is because when the church formed early on, certain things were certain values that were really infiltrated into it. There was no diversity of thought.
Yeah.
There was just this one parallel stream coming in, and everyone says, oh, our hermeneutic needs to take into consideration what the church fathers said. And I'm like, no disrespect to the church fathers, because I love what they have to say. I've read a lot of what they have done, but just because they're older doesn't mean they're more right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm more right. I'm just saying we are responsible to interpret the word from the word.
Right. And that is where I've found refreshing the foundation that is biblical theology and not systematic. Yep. Systematic has a place. Yeah. Systematic theology, you really are forced to bring all of these texts and passages and fit them into nice, tidy little bags and corners and pockets. And it just doesn't work that way. Not all of them fit. But then the same thing is true, but it's more natural that there's biblical theology, that there are things that tuck away very nicely, and then a few things that are left out. But and I say seeming tension purposefully, the seeming tension that's there, which is really finite nature, not really completely being able to comprehend or understand everything.
Everything does not appease. Everything does not satisfy our logic.
Yeah. Yeah. But allowing those to stand, I'm much more comfortable allowing those to stand and be comfortable with that because, in one way it just speaks to he's God, I'm not. And there's things I'm not going to understand. Doesn't mean we don't search those things out and understand the best we can. Yeah. But it's okay to let things stand as they are, and not really feel like you have to have a quick answer every question that's posed in Scripture. Do you have this book, D.A. Carson's Exegetical Fallacies?
Yeah.
Great book among the others that I have. That was one of the other ones that I was going to say. That'd be good. Well, hey, of these other questions, are there any others that you wanted to hit more than other?
I don't know, Jethro Moses type thing.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Was there ever a moment where you were doing something or things and it was too much, and there came a point where, like in Exodus 18, like Jethro came and said, "Hey, what you're doing is not good."
The dean of my Bible school was an ancient man, and he was a pastor with a group called Village Missions, and pastored in very rural areas out west, and just brilliant guy, loved the Lord, and was always someone that I could go to and seek counsel from and get encouragement from. And he was very much a mentor to me. Of course, our pastor has always been a great example and a trustworthy source of counsel and direction.
Yeah.
I would say the person who has brought the Jethro type of counsel to me more than once would be my wife.
Yeah. So can you share maybe an example or a situation or two where she gave you that advice you heeded and it went well, and maybe sometimes where you had that advice and you wish you would have changed course or direction? And
it's not always advice. It's recognizing in your wife and in your family that you're doing too much elsewhere. You see the fruit of it. And, my wife would let me know if I am slacking on things I should be doing in the family and in taking care of her, taking care of my kids, just being there
right
for the sake of ministry. She would let me know, but it becomes obvious after a while when you're doing too much that you need to make some changes. You need to figure it out. You need to let go. Many, many times over the years, we've had great ideas. We've had these ministries. We've launched these things within the church, and we've just let them die. And here's what I've accepted. It's okay to let them die. If we have to labor and work and force something to happen,
shouldn't
let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go. We can't force it. It doesn't work that way.
Oh, that's a good word. Really, really just encourages one to consider, is this something that maybe a good aspiration, maybe a good thing to do? You pile those up and then it becomes, which is it that the Lord wants us? We feel like maybe he's led us to, well, the Lord doesn't lead us into all sorts of confusion and just burning the candlestick at both ends. Maybe there's seasons that pop up like that where it's just, it's a season, but it's not the pattern of your whole life.
We're always going to have weeks and seasons that are really heavy. And then we'll have weeks and seasons that are really light, where people might look into our life and think we're complete and total slackers.
Yeah.
But, where the week where things were really light kind of makes up for the fact that the previous 2 weeks, they weren't light at all.
Right. Yeah. We kind of went through a season of that this spring. We have little twins, and my wife teaches at a Christian school here in town, and our older two go to school there, but I was the primary caretaker of our twins for the past 2 years. And, as ministry continues and as they grew, the responsibility toward them grew. And there was a season, from February through May where, man, it was early mornings, and it was basically from 6:30 in the morning until midnight most days, just going in a period where, my wife and I were, and we knew it was a season. We recognized it. We're like, well, we are really going to have to be diligent through this season. And then, where we didn't see each other a ton through the week. Ships passing in the night. She would take the kids. I'd continue working, for a good part of the evening. And, we had time together, but there are those seasons, and it's okay to have those seasons. It's okay. Got to be aware of them, aware of your own weaknesses and things of that nature. But also the seasons where there's not as much doesn't mean that, and I appreciate your word for that, because, when you're being lazy, when the Spirit convicts you of that, but also the enemy likes to launch those aspects of and attacks of like guilt and say, hey, you're not doing what you should, or the amount that you should. And just being mindful of that. That's why I always love Exodus 18, where Jethro comes and says, hey, what you're doing is not good. You're going to wear yourself and the people out.
Yeah. And he had people to appoint. Just like in Acts 6. As it was growing in number of disciples, that meant there were people you could appoint.
Yeah.
And when our churches are small, we don't have people we can appoint. And sadly, when our churches are small, we're usually starting out and we're young, and we have a whole bunch of kids. We had 7 at one point.
Yeah.
We had 4 of our own. We adopted 3 more. And, I was 2 weeks from being an empty nester, and my wife said, can we foster this boy?
Oh man,
haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah. One day, Lord willing.
Yeah.
I'll close. What is one piece of advice that you would give to 29-year-old Pastor Chad, just starting out, now 26 years later in ministry and life? What's 1 or 2 things you would say to that young pastor who's just started?
I don't know. I think I would want me to make all those mistakes. I think I would want me to go through all of that, because I could go back and say, be more upfront with people, be more direct, don't leave things don't just assume things with people, because most of your problems are you assume things with people. You weren't direct with them. You didn't lay the expectations out. Then you have conflicts and problems and divisions and heartbreak and everything else. And so there are words of advice you can go back and give. But if I did that, who would I be today? So I think everything that I went through was with purpose and was with value. And I'm, glad that I really focused on studying. I'm glad that I focused on continuing to learn. I've taken some classes here and there. There's just so much available. There are classes available on Logos, things online, read books, push the boundaries, try to convince yourself to believe what other people believe. Because what's going to happen is you're going to believe what you believe all the better. But it's a good practice. I don't think a lot of people can handle it. Make sure you're a person that has a good hermeneutic. But it's something I do every once in a while. I'm going to try, to follow this path towards why this person believes this doctrine. And I did it with covenantal theology not too long ago. Convince me covenantal theology is correct, and try to follow that path. I'm going in with an open mind. I'm willing to learn. And then my hermeneutic just kept bam, bam, bam. But you learn.
Yeah.
Keep learning, keep growing, take classes, learn some Greek.
Yeah. Yeah.
Learn how to use the grammar in Greek. I can't read Greek, but I know how to use it. I can read it, but, I can pronounce it. You know what I mean? But I don't know what all those words mean. I still need my tools to do it, but I can break down the grammar, and I can see how it's all tied together. I can do a sentence diagram, and just see how, like, I had to change Bible translation that I used for years because I started doing this, and I'm like, why did my Bible interpret it this way? This was a gerund, and now it's not. So
yeah.
like I'm like, I got to find something else.
Right.
I've been in.
What translation do you use?
I use ESV now.
Okay. Yeah.
But if I had my choice, I would use Holman. But it's just knowing that I'm going to choose a translation, then my people are going to choose that translation. And there wasn't a lot available in the Holman Standard world, but there was a lot available in the ESV world. And, it's good.
Yeah.
I still think we should have, the good solid word for word translation. What was it? NASB. I think we should have that to fall back
NASB.
on. Have one there, read that. But, and if you like the poetry of the King James stuff, knock yourself out. It has just frustrated me grammatically so many times, pulling my hair out. And my Bible that was given to me in Bible school, I'm like, I'm going to set you aside, my little friend, and I'm going to use something else because I'm struggling with what they did with the grammar. And then later on you learn more. And it's like, I'm struggling with the influence of the Masoretic text and the biases that came with that, so as you grow, you find more things that you struggle with.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't even know what the Masoretic text is. Okay. Well, learn, grow. It's fine. Don't feel bad that you don't know what that is. Like, dig into it. Like, make it an adventure.
And were the Jewish translators who put that together, was there bias in there?
Yeah.
Were they afraid of things that were said in the text to such a degree that they changed it?
Mm-hmm.
The nations were divided according to the number of the sons of God. No. We need that to say something else, So was there a supernatural fear or bias in it?
Right.
There is at times. And so that's where that Hebrew came from. So, but I still read it, I still reference it. I still like the wording sometimes, but
of course,
if you're really going to dig in and study, keep learning.
Yeah. I do want to ask you about continuing education, seminary. And then I had another, I wanted to kind of summarize and maybe ask a follow-up question on what you just shared. So basically what you're saying without giving one point is, and I kind of see it like twofold, is be okay with making mistakes, not like willful mistakes, but learning from those things. Not trying to be perfect, because really learning from the mistakes is like the best way to learn some of those lessons we might not learn otherwise, and then just be a good student is kind of what I'm hearing from you. Yeah. I think it's freeing. I think it's freeing to realize that we are going to make mistakes. And I think something that just in the 3 years, because I'm only in this 3 years, which is not nothing, but it's not 26 years.
Yeah.
But one thing that that I have realized and I've needed to be encouraged in is that this is a Lord's church. Mm-hmm. And if the success of the work or its demise is hinging solely on one of these mishandlings of things, and that's going to throw my world into a downward spiral, there's something like wrong with that. I'm not trusting that this is God's work, that he's called me to it. It doesn't mean that with those mistakes that there, like you said, isn't heartache. There isn't a refining. There isn't a, even in some moments, a chastising from God or from others, a rebuke. But it's okay to be taught by our Father, who's a good Father, who allows those things and teaches us by those mistakes. And I can say there's a lot of things that I have either done or not done that I won't do the same way, because I I made the mistake of not handling it right. And those are the
20 years down the road, you'll go back and you'll use yourself as one of your commentaries.
Yeah.
You're like, what did I say last time I taught this? And I'll be like, I can't believe.
Let's take that teaching off the internet.
I can't believe I said that. And sometimes I'll just say, I don't know if any of you were here last time I taught this, but this is what I said last time, and that's crazy.
Oh, that's great. So just on that second point, like continuing to learn, I am a proponent of that as well. I think it can be tempting to stay in the lanes of our doctrinal camp, and I'm not like calling shots at anybody in particular or anything like that, but I just think in general, there can settle in just this idea that I believe what I believe because it's what I believe. I'm so convinced about the pattern of ministry. I don't feel like I need to read other people or glean from other people. And I think it's one of the reasons why the Lord brought me into Calvary Chapel the way that he did, because in school, even beyond school, in graduate studies, like I have been challenged to intellectually engage with ideas that I don't hold to, but to actually seriously consider them, break them down and allow that to even further galvanize how I teach or what I teach or what I emphasize and how I approach things.
You're teaching the word.
Yeah.
And you're wondering, what's happening in someone's head when they hear a passage. They'll hear a passage, and are they plugging that into the formula of their old doctrine at their old church? And they're going down a path to their own conclusion. Yeah. And and then you look at a passage, and someone's going to read this passage, and it's going to take them down a path to this. It's going to do it. And so you have to have the foresight to address that. This passage is going to lead different people into different places because it's kind of a launching point into these different doctrines and these different views. And so, I've mentioned this before. I've just kind of made it a personal exercise now and then. It's like, oh, we've had people leave our church and go off into Hebrew roots, and they seem very dedicated to it. How'd they get there?
Yeah.
I've built a friendship with a guy who was a lead singer in one of my favorite punk bands in high school. It's just smart guy, loves the Lord, just really serious about his faith, but he's Hebrew roots. And so it's like, okay, convince me, and so I'm asking questions, show me your way, and it didn't work, but I went into it with an open mind because that for me was a discipline of understanding. I wanted to know how people got there. I want to know how someone left where they're at here and went and became reformed, or how someone left where they're at here and now they're in like some kind of word of faith world,
right?
Or how they left someone where they were here, but they left and now they're Orthodox. How did they get there? I want to know what that path looks like because, one, what if they were right? I want to explore that. What if the Hebrew roots guy is right? I want to explore that. And, I've never found these things to be right, but I go into them with an open mind because it's just a personal exercise of mine. But what that does is now I'm better equipped to teach this passage and this doctrine, which is for other people a launching point or a touch point for these other doctrines.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really look at the expanding of the horizons in reading different people, from different traditions, as that basis from which to challenge the ideas and convictions and understandings I have, like I said, to strengthen me, but also, like you said, and it's a great point, to address some of these other paths that people take or may be hearing. I mean, because look, and this is something I taught recently on Wednesdays. I'm also going through Deuteronomy, and when we went through chapters 4.
Isn't Deuteronomy a
5 and
blast?
6. Oh my goodness, it's great.
I know. I just did chapter 10. I love it.
Man, I think probably my favorite verses or passages thus far are chapters 4, 5, and 6.
Mm-hmm.
But Moses is charged to the people, listen to every statute, don't take away from it or add to it. But that idea of listening, there are so many voices that can speak into people's minds today.
I know. And then he'll go on to say, do the whole law and go the whole way. You know, that is just over and over and over again.
Yeah. And it's so true. I just take it all in. And it's important to realize that, and this is something I have just been led to emphasize when I went through that with our fellowship, but you got to be careful who you're letting speak into your life.
Mm-hmm.
In that regard, it's not wrong to take in from others, but our people are listening to many people, and some of them might not know that they're listening to 5 different pastors from 5 different traditions.
Yeah.
And that can be confusing. And to be able to point out those different things, it's not like that pastor's wrong or that person is teaching heresy. By the way, heresy is a word that gets thrown around. Let's just put that one down. That means, and their children are not saved. So,
it means division.
Yeah.
The end goal of heresy is that it's bringing division.
Yeah.
Not whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Heretic has become code for, I don't agree. But anyway, say that all to say, being able to know and see and even anticipate what people are listening, having that discernment to know who's in the body and what paths. And I just think reading and education, I'm a proponent that continuing education, even in a formal sense, is important. I don't say this as any means of gloating. In fact, for many, many years, even before I was a senior pastor, I kind of was embarrassed almost to say that, well, yeah, I have a degree from Liberty. And then when I got my master's, now I have a master's, for fear of perception that's something I'm really leaning on, to validate the ministry.
Well, there it is right behind you.
It's right there. And that's all I need. No. But I think that there can be this throwing out of the baby with the bathwater, that continuing education, whether it's formal or informal, but especially formal, it's not for us. It's not for, because, beware of the leaven of the seminaries is really, what it comes down to. Certainly that can be a thing to watch out for, but I'm not of that persuasion. Curious to know what your thoughts are on pastors engaging in more formal academic training, whether they do so to obtain a degree or not, and what your experience is.
I highly recommend, as a pastor, always finding ways to continue your education. So, and there are so many things available to us.
You mentioned like Logos because it has a couple of free courses and stuff. What are some avenues or maybe resources that you have taken advantage of that have been a good tool for you?
I took some classes from Calvary Chapel University. I took some classes from the school that Michael Heiser ran down in Florida. I'll find, if I'm really want to get into a topic or really be refreshed on something, like it's about time for me to take a Greek class again.
Yeah.
I'm losing some letters in the alphabet. I've lost the order of these 3 here at the end that all rhyme with one another.
Right.
It's like, which one comes first?
Yeah.
So it's about time to take a class on that. And I've always taken, I have the videos and the workbooks and book for mounts to go through the Greek class.
Yeah.
But, I think it's time to do another one. And I actually have one that I've purchased, and it's kind of on the deck in Logos, so I could just take it in Logos.
Cool.
And I just find it,
Yeah.
Seminary maybe for an established pastor, maybe there's a path forward to taking classes and moving forward and getting degrees. I've known lots of guys who have, but I would find what works for you. I would
Yeah.
find that you don't want to be burdened financially.
Mhm.
You don't want to take classes for the sake of a degree that are going to force you to waste so much time on things you don't need to know.
Mhm. Mhm.
If I went down the path towards getting accredited education, because none of mine's been accredited, um, I'd have to take a bunch of classes on stuff that I don't need.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't need it. Well,
Yeah.
what about algebra? Well, back when I wound electric motors and had to figure out, all of that stuff. Yeah, I used algebra, but
Right.
I don't use it
I
now.
know.
I don't use it now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I've yet to employ the Pythagorean theorem from the pulpit.
Yeah.
When that day comes, I'll be sure to let you know. But I'm not. I have not applied that at all. So that's a good good encouragement to take it in, but not to unnecessarily burden yourself or feel like it's got to be toward a degree or it's got to be at this certain place. But just that you're
Just take the class you
yeah
want.
yeah yep yeah.
Like, this is a topic I need more training in.
Mm-hmm.
Do that.
Yeah.
Or find a workshop or find a practicum or anything.
Yeah.
So one thing that I've been kicking around is trying to figure out a way. And I don't know if I'm the guy to do this, because I think it would require someone who maybe is a little bit more respected, but like a serious training based mentorship program for pastors.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, you have to find pastors who are humble enough to say, I do need training in this. He's like, what do you mean? I've been pastoring for 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I've heard a lot of guys who have been pastoring for 15, 20 years who can't put together a cohesive message without rambling. It's just like, but
Yeah.
maybe just something that just really
Yeah.
focuses on preparation
Yeah.
and delivery.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of guys in our tradition, even guys who have been pastoring for a long time, could benefit from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Right. Yeah. And it's nothing to say of the genuineness or the fruit or the blessing of their ministry, but just that idea of wanting to be sharpened and wanting to grow and not being complacent in our growth. I had a couple of years where I was doing volunteer firefighting, and there's a saying that goes around in the fire service that complacency kills.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that might be a little bit of an extreme type of statement in regard to continuing education, but as it relates to the pastorate. But that the principle behind that is you will revert to the highest level of your training in moments where you're called upon.
Yeah.
And moments where you're really put to task. And this does not mean that if you don't have a degree or you don't have any formal training that your ministry will be less effective than another. But the point I gain from that is just allow your mind to be sharpened by this. And there's such benefit that comes.
Yep. You don't have to go to school, but you can learn, and you should.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me what you've done to improve your learning. Tell me what default conclusions that you copied from Chuck Smith and David Guzik that you have challenged and you've come to the conclusion on your own. Tell me that. I mean, do you have any of those? It only takes you to study through one book to really just say, you know what, I really broke this down on my own. And I feel like, I came to a similar conclusion, but I think it's one with more clarity and more context to the scripture instead of just parroting what the other pastors have always said.
Yeah.
And I think our tradition has a lot of parroting. I think our tradition has a lot of read and ramble.
Mm-hmm.
And not real cohesive structure, and that has worked. and that's been acceptable. And people have made longstanding careers without ever getting beyond that. But I think we really should push back against that.
Yeah, I'm of a similar conviction, and I really appreciate the among many of the other pastors that I've come to know, even in our region, where that's the heart, is just to not throwing shade on other guys and how they minister, but just the conviction of, but I'm going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the way that I feel convicted by the Lord to conduct myself in my personal growth and ministry. And so I'm convicted in a similar way, that I don't want my brains to rust out because I don't allow them to be engaged beyond just the things that I've already come to think about, and those things that are very plain in our camp. Well, been enjoying the you can give, but would you close us out with some prayer for us and the ministry God has called us to, and the brothers who are.
Father, thank you for the opportunity just to talk with fellow pastors about ministry, and to give and to receive words of encouragement, to show grace, to receive grace, to be given grace, to not take ourselves too seriously, Lord, and just help us to walk in humility and make us teachable. And I pray that this conversation might be an encouragement to someone, and that this ministry would continue to grow. You would open more doors for Joel. You would bring more people in to have fruitful conversation, and it would be a good and edifying thing. Thank you for the ministries you've given us, Lord. And may we, with seriousness and care and caution, do our best to glorify you in them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. That was a fun conversation, wasn't it? Thanks for joining us today. Hey, if you got some ideas for questions to ask these pastors, those $1 million questions, those questions that you've been wondering about, drop a comment and let us know what questions you might want answered. Praying that this has been a blessing to you. Have a great week, Pastor, and give him Jesus.